cut short last time we started this because I had a bunch of shit going on, and you did too. So now we're back at it. Let's just pick up where I think we left off, more talking about Corps Med Foundation and the stuff you guys are doing.
Yeah. So, man, like I said, was in the military for 17 years and some change. Was a friend of Sydney's, the CEO of Corps Medical Group, for 5 or 6 years there towards the end. But it was kind of one of those like running jokes. Like every time we would hang out, he'd be like, "Hey man, whenever you're getting out, I get first dibs on hiring you." Like I said, leaving this deployment, I'd actually just kind of started the medical retirement process. And he gives me a call, just checking in, seeing how things are going. I told him I was starting my medical retirement process. Pretty much said, "Hey, it's a 15-hour drive, right?" So yeah, got my wife and kids in the sleep in the back seat. And he's like, "You'll have an email. Check your email before you get home. I'll send you a job offer." So now I'm the manager of our outreach division. So running, man, it's just a nonprofit giving back to veterans, first responders, law enforcement. We've done free training. We do like, especially, law enforcement officers that pass away in the line of duty, just like putting on events for them, giving their guys free training, kind of bringing them together. And then typically we do like a fundraiser at the end to raise funds for the family. Trying to do a lot of those as like an annual event, because man, a lot of times what happens, military, law enforcement, it's all pretty similar. One of the biggest things that I see is you lose somebody, and like the whole community bands together and they mourn that loss, and they're there for the family. But then 6 months, a year later, like our jobs are back up and running, life's kind of back to normal for everybody else, and the family kind of feels like they lost that connection. They lost that connection to the one that they love that was serving in that capacity, and also they lose that support. And so what we're trying to do is get those as like annual events where we showing the community that like, hey, no matter what happens, whether it's in the line of duty or not, whether it's on a deployment or it's a training accident, we're there for you. We know how it goes. We want to make sure that you're taken care of. We're going to say your name out loud, remember you, tell those stories about you, and also make sure that your family's taken care of in the long run. And so that's that kind of stuff. We also put on every year a military appreciation weekend out in South Carolina. This will be I believe it's the 5th one. 2025 will be in February, the last weekend of February, February 28th through March 2nd. I've kind of been involved behind the scenes as just a friend of Corps Medical Groups with every single one. Except for last year. I was deployed during last year's event. But man, it's been freaking cool. Typically 250 or 350 people there. 80% of those are typically veterans and their family. We'll get some people. It's not just for military, it's not just for law enforcement, but it's open to everybody. Like if you support those organizations, if you support those people, come out. And it's a chance for like guys to come out, donors to come out and spend time with the people that they're donating money to. It's also, man, it's just filled with a bunch of fun activities. Like we do, we'll have a bunch of like military influencers, guys like Cody Alford, one of the fastest promoted Marines in Marine Corps history. Nick Kumalatzos will be out there. This year we'll have like John Barenthal coming, the Punisher. We have Rocco Vincent Vargas, he's big time military guy. He's in Ranger Regiment. Now he was in Border Patrol. Now he's like on the Mayans, that show, The Mayans, so getting a lot of people from our community come out and support that stuff, support our guys. That's what it's about, bringing people from those communities together, giving them a fun event, like a relaxing, reinvigorating, kind of find your purpose event, and also bringing out like some big donors and some people to put forth money to that. And 100% of the proceeds go towards like combating veteran and law enforcement, first responder suicide rates.
What type of activities you guys do out there?
So this year will be my first year running this.
Gotcha.
But man, we found an awesome. So every year in the past, we were doing this at Sydney's house in South Carolina, in Beaufort, South Carolina. Every year it was extremely stressful. Like, he's the CEO and he would be taking it all on.
Yeah.
And I'd be his friend and they're like, dude, you are stressed out. Like, what can we do to take this pressure off of you? You should be enjoying this and, like, you know, kind of getting a chance to, like, spend time with these dudes rather than freaking out worrying about what's coming next and, like, if things are going according. Someone else should be doing this.
Yeah.
Well, now that's going to be me this year. So
you'll be stressed out.
Yeah. Yes. But man, we found, so last year while I wasn't there, my wife and little sister actually flew out to the event and helped out with it quite a bit. But there was another organization from like 20 minutes down the road. It's called OPFOB, Operation Patriot Forward Operating Base. Great organization. It's run by, their CEO is JR. He was, I think, 24 years in the Marine Corps. Did some time with Blackwater. Awesome dude, but man, he's very intelligent, very, very well thought out individual. Like, everything that he does is with a purpose. But he's also very passionate about giving back to this community. And kind of his story was he lost 19 guys that he deployed with over that 20-something years. 19 of them he lost to suicide. And he finally told his wife, like, that's enough is enough. Yeah. We're gonna go all in and put our money where our mouth is and start an organization to combat that. And then I believe he's the director of operations, is Jimmy. Another 21 years in the Marine Corps, spent quite a bit of time in special operations. Freaking awesome dude, super passionate about giving back to veterans. But man, they've got 260 acres. I believe it's in Ridgeland, South Carolina. But it's like 20 minutes down the road from where we've been holding these events at.
Gotcha.
He's like, dude, why are you not doing this at our place instead of at your house, you know? So this year we're actually teaming together with them. And it's the perfect relationship because what they offer veterans is veterans, law enforcement, first responders. They offer them a place to come out for free. They've got bass ponds. They've got 33 different skeet shooting and trap shooting, like automatic deals that they run, stations that they run. They've got a 700-yard range. They've got an incredible facility. And what they were doing was putting on every year a massive concert, and they would bring out like a big country music artist to the concert.
Gotcha.
And they would raise funds. All those proceeds would go towards combating suicide in those communities. Well, it works out perfectly because our main focus, even though we do camaraderie events and we do training events for those communities, we also, our main focus with the Corps Med Foundation is, you know, the latest research shows that 70% of veterans who commit suicide have a hormone deficiency. So trying to combat that, we've donated this year 350, which it's actually now closer to 400, almost 400. That was our goal, was 400. We're very close to that goal before the year end goes out. But 350 one-year hormone replacement therapy to veterans that need it and can't afford it.
What is the value of that? Just so to put that in perspective for people. How do you say value per person if you average it out? Like per year, you think?
Probably $3,000 or $4,000 a piece. But that is, man, that's been a huge game changer.
Well, that doesn't sound like a lot maybe to some people, but this is, I think, what the conversation we need to have is, how hard is it for someone to off the street who may have dealing with this go into a regular physician or the VA or anything and get proper treatment for things like this? So,
man, that's something that I have been through on my own.
Right.
Is like when I first went and found out, probably 2 years prior to meeting Sydney and the Corps Medical Group, that's when I found out that my testosterone levels were 184. And when I got on testosterone, I was I didn't think that I had a problem. I didn't think that I was, because it's such a slow onset. It doesn't happen overnight. It's just, this is my new normal. And I didn't realize the brain fog. I didn't realize, the lack of mental clarity. I didn't realize the terrible quality of sleep that I was getting. And I was like cortisol driven life, which just puts you in a spiral. But like when I went in there the first time, the doctor that I went to go see, it was me and my wife, and he was like, hey man, your test, he's like, I just want to apologize because when you came in, I thought, here comes another dude trying to abuse testosterone.
Yeah.
He's like, but your levels are 184. He's like, I don't know how you're getting out of bed every morning. Yeah. But then going through that, him giving me, not the best protocols in the world. And then he was adamant of trying the pellets. I tried the pellets. Didn't really work out well for me. For whatever reason, my body was resistant to it. Then I went to the VA, and at the VA, it was just this like doing super tiny doses and not taking them often enough. And then occasionally I would go in to renew my prescription, and they'd be like, well, we can't renew your prescription this month. And it's like, that's a complete drop off of my horn. This is the opposite of what I'm trying to do. Yeah. That's just going to put me even deeper in a hole.
Yeah.
So, man, I've heard that horror story from tons of different dudes, where they go in and they're like, well, you're at 300 and we know that that's low, but at the VA, we like to see it below 200. Yeah. And there's a lot of ways that the VA has gotten a whole lot better than what it used to be. But that's still an area where they don't do well, is specifically in hormone replacement and hormone management. That should not be a 30-year-old that's done a couple years in the military and had several deployments shouldn't be coming in with a testosterone level of 300. Yeah. And you tell them, well, it's got to be below 200 for me to give you a prescription. And then, so kind of once we started to donate those, man, that's where I saw, like, man, we had guys coming to the military appreciation weekend, and they would, one guy specifically, but I've had a lot of people kind of with a similar story. The first time it happened, it changed my life. Like, this guy came in, he was overweight, out of shape. We spent the weekend together. He was a good guy. But at the end of the weekend, he pulled me aside and he was like, man, I've got a bunch of injuries. I've got like every excuse in the book to not be working out. And I've allowed that to say, well, that's why, I would work out, but I've got all these injuries and I've got all these issues and yada, yada. He's like, but dude, I just spent the whole weekend with you guys. And a lot of these guys like Cody Alfred and Nick Kay, so I see these guys on social media and I think, yeah, but they're just different than I am. Yeah. It's like, now I'm spending the weekend with you guys and I see y'all also have the same Rolodex of excuses that I have, but you're refusing to let that drive your life. He's like, man, I just want you to know it made a huge difference in my life. It kind of gave me that purpose. He's like, next year I'm coming back. I'll be in shape next year. Not only was he a freaking stud when he'd been working out hard for 365 days. Also, he had found an incredible job, was making a whole lot better money. And he's like, dude, this completely changed my life around. Like, just realizing that I've kind of been living in this victim mentality and deciding, regardless of what people say about veterans, I'm not going to be a statistic and I'm not going to let that ruin my life. I control my own destiny. I'm gonna put in the time and the effort at the gym and with it in every aspect of my life, in my relationships and whatever, so that I can change that outcome. And dude, when you start helping people do that, I feel like it's incredible. Like, that's the best feeling in the world, to feel like I had a direct impact on this dude's life for the better. Yeah. I'm obviously super passionate about it. It's what I do for a living now.
Yeah, dude. I think I've been dealing with this because of not on proper protocol in my early 20s, yep. And then damaging my receptors and all that, and then having to be on TRT for the past 3 years and still having, like, getting completely off of it, trying to, have another kid, all that stuff, going through all that, bottoming everything out, realizing that naturally it's not coming back up anymore. Yep. And then trying to supplement it with these, these different, bottles of tests and not knowing what levels you're getting and all, just all that stuff. And it's like, I don't think people understand what it does to you mentally. How that, how those hormones, as they adjust, what receptors are firing, also your energy level, how your work ethic, I mean, because even still, yes, I can still work out, because working out has been something that I've been doing for 20 years, yep. And training and stuff, but it's not about getting a PR anymore. It's just, for me, it's just about staying consistent. Even
back then, man, when I went to the doctor for the first time to get my levels checked, I was honestly at one of the strongest points of my life.
Yeah.
Like I was deadlifting 605 for a double, you know, but I was working so hard to get there. And I had a test level of 184.
Yeah.
And when I pull my shirt off, I'm extremely like dieting, super hardcore. I'm super serious in the gym, super consistent in the gym. But when I pull my shirt off, I look like a normal dude. I just have, like, I'm like skinny fat almost, you know, and I couldn't understand that I'm working so hard and not seeing those results. Like I just chalked it up to genetics. I didn't understand. The other thing was like, man, I didn't realize how hard I was working at work to produce the same quality of work that used to come easy to me. I don't know. I chalked it up to like I'm getting older.
Old.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think that's an excuse, but I do think like we tell ourselves that because you don't know any different.
Yeah.
And then imagine how many people are coming back with PTSD that maybe could have been combated with getting their hormones, you know, back level, you know, not knowing, not misdiagnosed, or not even recognizing that was an issue at all.
Well, one of the things that we're super big with is like identifying what is a behavioral challenge and what is a like hormonal imbalance. And so it's not necessarily just about the numbers, because your testosterone numbers, we're not here to treat a number. Like I know a lot of like the VA, for example, 200 and under is where they draw the line. But like in reality, what feels good for you will be different than what feels good for me. You know, if I'm sitting around 300, which is kind of the bottom end if you look at a textbook of like normal ranges,
I'm dead.
I do not feel good.
Yeah, I'm dead.
But once you get from that and you treat the signs and symptoms, not just the number itself, because who knows what my normal natural levels were prior to this. And that's something like, working with Sydney, working with Core Medical Group, like that's something he's been adamant about, like being proactive with that. And like, man, take your kids and go get their levels checked now.
I think it's a good idea.
So you have this reference of like, hey, naturally you're sitting at this number. And like now, 10 years from now, when you know they start showing signs and symptoms, like, well, hey, go get your blood work checked, and we know what normal looks like. I'm not saying kids as like my kids are 6 and 7,
but like, you know,
in high school,
been through puberty already, and look and see I think that's heightened right after. But you know, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, the late high school, early college years, go get your levels checked and see where you're at naturally, and start to kind of being proactive with that. Now we know what your baseline is, what baseline normal is for you. But like, man, seeing guys come back we have one guy that we've worked with quite a bit. I freaking love him to death, but he did a lot of very, very intense work overseas. He did a lot of undercover work as well, like plainclothes stuff. For 5 years, he lived as a Muslim amongst a terrorist network cell, when in actuality he was a Christian. And so he's like, man, I went to prayer 5 days a week, or five times a day. He's like, it was just mentally, it was draining. And then coming back from that, he did several years undercover down in South America as well. But like just a crazy, crazy life, hectic. I mean, committed the overwhelming majority of his life was to benefit the United States and our politics, I guess, our safety. But you know, when that dude reaches out and he's like, hey man, I didn't tell anybody when I called in, but long story short, he had gone into a coffee shop. He had a body bag sitting at a hotel bathroom with his driver's license stapled to it and a plan to commit suicide. Stops by a coffee shop waiting on a phone call and opens up a book, happened to be Nick Koumalatsos's book, randomly that was at a coffee shop. Starts reading it, ends up bawling. He's like, man, I was bawling crying in this coffee shop. Calls Core Medical, becomes a patient, decides I'll do this another day, and has completely changed his life. Like now that dude is going and doing large fundraising events for other veterans. It's like, dude, the second I got into, you know, a month into my protocol with Core Med, that drastically changed my life. All those things that were options on the table didn't exist. He's like, that was just because I was operating in this hormonal imbalance in addition to all of these other issues that I have going on. I think it's just something that compounds when you're estrogen driven, when unknowingly your estrogen and your cortisol are through the roof and your testosterone is low. You're driven more by your emotions. You're an extremely emotional being, and it's not how you're meant and designed to operate. Like, your body isn't meant to work like that.
Yeah, under stress constantly, not to mention physical, but also internally.
And then a lot of those dudes, man, like getting blown up, getting those like major TBIs where it affects your pituitary gland and it affects your body's ability to create that testosterone on its own. And guys just pretend like that's not happening. But man, through the Core Medical Foundation, what we've been doing is teaming up with a lot of other nonprofits that are veteran and law enforcement specific, and donating to them, working with them to combat that, trying to get those hormone levels balanced. And obviously we try to do other events as well, you know, showing guys that we're there for the community. We kind of unofficial motto is like, we care about you because we are you. You know, a lot of the guys at Core Medical Group are former military, former law enforcement. We came from those communities, and it's our way to give back to them by using the Core Medical Foundation, getting out there and showing them that we care, giving them any form of camaraderie event or free education, free training, as well as that hormone replacement therapy. What we've kind of done is, instead of like rewriting the book, there's tons of great nonprofits out there that are doing great work. So instead of like us trying to revamp, like, how do we do these camaraderie events all the time and also raise enough funds to donate all this hormone replacement therapy, it's more like, hey, we found, for example, perfect example is OpFob. We found these guys in South Carolina. They're doing a fantastic job at that. So let us replace your hormones, and then let's introduce you to OpFob. That's a great place to go at no cost to you, where you can be around like-minded dudes and start to work through your problems. Yeah. Man, it's been a blessing to me because, you know, I came right off of, you know, coming back from a deployment and just went from one mission set to the next. And so this is my new purpose. And I feel like this is exactly where God intended me to be at this time in my life, is kind of honing myself in order to help others who have been through similar things. But that's kind of the biggest thing for me, is just how we can give back to those communities, how we can help those people. And it's not just the veteran and law enforcement guys that need it. Like, obviously, guys like yourself.
Yeah,
guys,
I'm neither one. You know, but yeah, exactly.
Well, that's, you know, Sidney Gordon, our CEO, he was never in the military. Right. He's a civilian, but he's been introduced to that community and so frequently seen those side effects there that's his like passion in life, is giving back to these dudes. Yeah. I've never met a more giving individual than Sidney. Even when I didn't work for him, I was just a friend of his. He is so passionate about finding good people, seeing the good in people and giving them opportunities and trying to help and impact their life in a positive way. I've watched him do it over and over and over again. That's why I have zero, you know, hesitation of accepting this job. It's something that I'm passionate about, but also I know that my leadership has my back, and like for sure is all about whatever it takes. Yeah. And so kind of going back to our event in February that we have coming up, we've actually teamed up with OpFob. We're going to be holding it at their location this year. We'll have, skeet shooting stations. There's, like I said, there's 33 different skeet shooting stations out there. We've got a bunch of major brands that are coming out. I've got a company that's a night vision company that's bringing a bunch of night vision stuff to demo. They're also bringing like a 240 Bravo and M249 SAW, like full automatic belt-fed machine guns that they're going to come out and people have an opportunity to shoot. We've got tons of military and veteran influencers and kind of celebrities, if you will. Jason Redman is one. Navy SEALs, just actually at an event with him in Arizona last week. But incredible dude, incredible story. He's there to give back to these communities as well. And kind of what we have is like different outdoor recreational activities to get people networking and talking to each other and like be able to relax. Man, for a lot of veterans, that is like therapy. Like going to the range becomes like a form of therapy. We're so used to doing that's something that we love to do. So getting guys outdoors, getting guys, out in the sun, in the air with the trees and shooting. If it's a shotgun, if that's what you want to do, great. We have skeet shooting opportunities. If it's, we'll have Michael Johnson from the UFC, Nick Kay, and Mike Arrow, a guy that works for us. He's been a black belt in jiu-jitsu for a long time. They're going to be holding like a jiu-jitsu deal every morning. We have Jason Redman and Alan Baker, who's another 25-year black belt. I think he's a black belt in like 25 different disciplines. Yeah. But Alan Baker and Jason Redman put on like a situational awareness and kind of like combatives course. We have like myself, I'll be holding like a 2-hour pistol range block where we take guys out from any different experience level. And to me, it's a lot of fun. People bring their kids, their wives, and we get an opportunity to take them out to the range and kind of spend some time. It's relaxing, it's therapeutic, it's a lot of fun. But this year we've had an overwhelming response from just a lot of support from other communities. We've got some big names coming in. Some guys from like Terran Tactical will be coming out to help out with running the range. We've got a bunch of very famous, like guys that have trained guys for the last, they've done more to combat terrorism by training guys to go out. So we're working with those guys to provide like the best course of training that we can at the experience, whatever experience level you're at. But you're going to be teamed up with guys that are industry kind of standard leaders, with also some veterans that are out there, so that you get kind of the best of both worlds of experience. Because that's what we want this event to be, is a combination of veterans and law enforcement guys that are in need of a getaway, of a good weekend, of a relaxing time, and that want to give money to a good cause, and also combining that with like donors and people who support those organizations. Get them a chance to rub shoulders and hang out and do fun events together. Let our donors see where their money is going. And so we'll have all kinds of special events like that. We're actually this year starting the event 2 days prior. We'll have one day that's just 25 to 50 veterans, law enforcement, first responders that are kind of in need of some additional getaway time. Gotcha. And so it'll be just those guys and our staff and some of our kind of celebrities and military influencers, working with those guys, spending some additional one-on-one time, make it a lot more intimate. The next day will be those same guys and some of our like big time donors, just them, still intimate, kind of a chance for them to network. If those guys need a job, maybe these guys can help them find a job. And then on Friday, the 28th, is when we open it up to everybody. And it'll typically, I think this year we're trying to cap it at between 350 to 400 people. That'll go through until Saturday. Saturday, we'll have events and training stuff all morning, and then that evening we're going to shut it down and come back it'll be open to the public, and we'll have a concert. We'll have a pretty big named musician. I can't say just yet. Have another meeting with them today to figure out who exactly it's going to be. We've got a pretty good idea, but have some big name, very well-known country bands that are coming out to play, and we're going to open that up. Ticket sales to the general public, estimated between 3,500 and 5,000 people will be there.
Okay, nice. So it's a decent-sized venue then.
Yeah. Like I said, man, the OpFob place is freaking incredible. But at the end of the day, 100% of those proceeds are going to go towards combating veteran and law enforcement suicide rates, and giving back, providing assistance to them, their families, people that need it. And so that's the main goal, kind of driving that focus of giving back to those communities. Yeah.
Well, I think it's important too to talk about the misrepresentation or not understanding what like hormone replacement therapy is versus abusing for aesthetic, things for aesthetics, or maybe even sports performance, because like there's a bad rap on any type of hormone replacement therapy, especially when you hear the word testosterone. Everyone thinks, oh, you're on steroids. Well, I've been a person who has abused steroids before, and it wasn't it was just a matter of like, well, I'm using them, I'm trying to be the peak performance at everything, and then it become my like base level.
Yeah.
And then it ended up frying everything. So now it's like, okay, to even find my base level anymore, where is it?
Yeah.
And then also like having these conversations with people when they start talking about them. I'm like, look, there's a difference between taking a bunch of Trimbolin and test and walking around and drinking and partying every weekend and trying to chase women versus physically using this. I mean, using it strategically and trying to get to you to where you need to be. And I think a lot of times that's the biggest gap is you have we've talked about this, but we have former, MMA fighters, former football players. All these people who live such a high stress on body and mental, like and veterans as well. Like they lived in this environment so long. Then once they come into like a situational norm, I guess, for everyone else, you start seeing those levels die off. Maybe because maybe they just used up everything they had. I don't really know what the science is behind that.
Well, I think a lot of it is especially like, MMA fighters, boxers, whatever, man, when you're taking shots to the head consistently, you're going to wind up with a lot of those same issues that the veterans are having from like operator syndrome or from traumatic brain injuries. You're getting those incremental traumatic brain injuries or mild traumatic brain injuries that are occurring over and over and over a period of years. And that's going to have an effect on your brain. That's going to have an effect potentially on your pituitary gland, on your ability for your body to create those hormones is going to be diminished. The other part of it is when you live in such a high stress, you're cortisol driven, that cortisol is spiking through the roof. That diminishes your testosterone is going to go down. And so once you have low testosterone, high cortisol, high estrogen, that's when you wind up into that like death spiral where your sleep is terrible, which once you're tired and now you're more susceptible to like impulse decisions. So now you're eating terribly, your eating habits go to shit pretty much. And it just all compounds. And
that's a link to like sleep apnea too being an issue. Did you have an issue with that?
Oh yeah.
Me too, but I don't anymore. Not near as bad. Like, you know what I mean?
I still do. And so I actually just did a big sleep study with Tulane University, their Tulane Center for Brain Health. They have a phenomenal program for former NFL athletes as well as veterans. Incredible. I just went through their like 3-day assessment.
Well, how did that go?
Dude, it was freaking awesome.
You got your results yet?
Not all of them. I'm still waiting on a couple of things to come back. But man, I got 3 years worth of medical, like checking out in 3 days.
That's
like
awesome.
I got CAT scans of my heart. I got a sleep study. I did full blood panel, I did x-rays, MRIs, like MRI of my brain, MRI of like certain injuries that I had ongoing, sat down with a physical therapist and went through like, hey, these are the injuries I have. What are some movements that I can do to get ahead of that? Sat down with like cognitive performance coaches, sat down with a doctor to like talk about my MRI and like things that were going on with my brain and cognitive performance. Sat down with a doctor to look at my x-rays and like go through like, hey, this looks like arthritis here. And this is like, go through everything, man. It was freaking awesome.
How did you land on this thing?
So it was a NFL study. It started off as an NFL case study for CTE and TBIs. They opened that up to SOCOM. And so it's a nonprofit running out of the Tulane Center for Brain Health. We actually, just a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I had a Zoom call with their medical director and Core Medical's medical director, and we're actually working together now. I had such an incredible experience that
sounds amazing paired with what you guys are doing too. Like to get all the way down into seeing what it is that the issue is and pinpointing that thing and trying to combat it.
And so that's part of it. Now they also run a 3-week, trying to get this right here, but it's like an interactive therapy. So you're doing like different forms of therapy, not just going to see which that's another part of it, is I went to see a therapist, a psychologist. Like they look at like total body, 3-day from brain, to everything going on with you, with your diet, like I sat down with a dietitian and looked at my blood results and talked about lowering cholesterol.
Dude, that's amazing.
It was freaking awesome.
Like, I'm getting excited hearing about this. Like,
but man, it's open enrollment for veterans. They had they send you like a questionnaire and you have to fill out. You do a little contacting with them, but then they provide travel arrangements for you. They put you up in a hotel, and then they give you meal vouchers while you're there as well. It was outstanding. I mean, it was a fantastic organization, extremely professional staff. I went and saw an audiologist, and they messed with me because I told them, I was like, man, in the military, I've had extreme like hearing loss since 2010. And something I've been like struggling with, like they give me hearing aids, and the hearing aids are terrible. I hated them, hated using them. And I have tinnitus, which is like a constant ringing in your ears. Mm-hmm. Dude, I went and saw this. Every year I go through the Army or through the Marine Corps prior, I would go and sit down with I do a fail a hearing test. They make me take it again. I fail a hearing test again, then go see an audiologist and have to do like all these different tests and try to hide the fact that I was extremely deaf through, sweet talking my way out of it or intimidating my way out of it, whatever it took to maintain my job. But it was a nightmare scenario for me. I went to see their audiologist, and he was freaking awesome. He did a bunch of tests that I'd never had done before, and like actually put in like where it was giving me static or some form of like almost like white noise in the background until he matched up that frequency with the frequency of my tinnitus. And like I told my wife, I was like, I almost like burst. I had no clue that there was like anxiety tied to that, of like a constant ringing in your ears.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense.
But for the first time in my life, first time in a long time that there wasn't like constant, loud, overwhelming ringing happening in my ears. And dude, I almost like teared up. I was like, all right, what is this? What is this black magic you got going on? But it was fantastic, man. And he wrote in his reviews of like specific notes of like getting these hearing aids, specific types of hearing aids that would drastically help me out throughout life, and also would like provide that feedback to where it takes away the tinnitus, the effects of tinnitus. Which another thing that we discussed that I found out for the first time was 70% of veterans, like the biggest like known sign or symptom prior to an incident, an attempted suicide, is tinnitus, a constant ringing in your ears. It provides like where you feel like you can't like turn your brain off. So you lay down at night and everything's quiet, and even though everything's fine, you just have this super loud ringing, and so your body's like something's going on. Or
do you have that?
Yeah.
So like,
yeah.
How do you turn? I mean, you just mentally learn to deal with that noise always running? Yeah,
and there's different, like another piece of it was they were asking like, have you ever used like white noise to try and like help yourself go to sleep? I'm like, no, man. Like first of all, I'm deaf. Second of all, I have tinnitus. So I'm afraid that like someone's going to break into my house and I'm not going to hear it because I have some white noise thing going on, and then I fail to protect my family. Like, yeah, that's also not normal.
Right. Yeah.
To think like that.
I mean, but it is if you're living that way for 20 years.
And that's the thing. It's like, they sat down, they're like, hey, as a therapist, like most people would probably chalk this up to like an anxiety disorder or whatever. We don't see it that way. We're used to working with you guys. This is just common when you live that way.
That's what I think. See, that's what I think. I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't want to make this point. That's what I think. There's a huge disconnection there. Is like, there's so many individuals, that have lived that high stress lifestyle in that specific scenario for so long that is their normal. Yep. And so trying to bring them back to this normal, and then taking the same metrics and comparing them and saying this is your treatment, that's not fucking accurate. There's no way it can't be. And that's how it's been going on for the past 50 years. Yeah.
Not just that, man. Like anxiety is a good thing. It's there. You could take that quote and probably put me in some trouble, but get me canceled. Right, but no, anxiety is a good thing in certain situations. Like if somebody pulls a knife on you, your anxiety is going to go up, and it's going to dump adrenaline into your system and cortisol into your system, and that's where your fight or flight turns on. And that anxiety of like, it's me and my wife leaving a date night or whatever and walking to our car, that little bit of heightened anxiety that tells me you should be aware of your surroundings just in case anything bad was to be happening. That's what gives you that situational awareness to like avoid being too deep into.
But the same token, like some people's anxiety goes to the roof because they don't have any toilet paper. You know what I mean? Like, so
it's all relative. Yeah. But I completely agree. It's not a good thing when you're trying to get a good night's sleep and it's been a while since you've had one.
Yeah.
And that's another thing of like having, I do struggle with sleep quite a bit, but it's something that I'm actively working on.
How often are you sleeping? Like, what's your ideal amount of hours for you?
Probably because I work out so often, I would love to get 8 hours consistently, but I can't. The problem with me is what happens is I'll go long periods of time with very, very little or not sleeping at all. And then all those things of like why I got on hormone replacement therapy, there's no amount of testosterone that's going to overcome. I haven't slept.
Yeah.
My brain fog is going to exist.
Exactly.
And so like my body's not recovering, all that kind of stuff just adds up. And it's something that I'm actively working. A lot of it is like habits and like I have to be very methodical in the way that I approach, like almost like building a regiment of things that I do before I go to sleep to like kind of start to shut my brain off. And so a lot of that comes down to like what preparation of, just like when you're going to the gym, a lot of times you'll have like a ritual of like what you do prior to. Like I know that I work out best if I consume this meal 2 hours prior to going in, and it's a specific kind of meal that I have set up for myself. And then, an hour and a half later, I start kind of feeling like I'm ready to go to the gym and I start getting mentally prepared. And then I take my pre-workout and then I go in there and I feel like I'm primed, pumped and ready to like do what I need to do in there. It's almost the same way at home. Like now I have to start like, okay, all right, it's time to get the kids in bath time or in the shower. At that point, I'm gonna go turn on. I'm gonna make some chamomile tea. I'm like start like running down like my pre-nighttime regiment so that I get my body in like a rhythm. And it's difficult to do. But a lot of that is like coming to terms with like different forms of, when guys have been through like traumatic experiences in the past, it manifests itself in different ways, and it can be dormant for a long period of time and then become a problem now. Something I didn't know really until fairly recently. Like going through Tulane, man, their therapist down there was freaking awesome, and like that's some of the things that I got a chance to like talk with her. And one of the questions she asked me is like, would you be okay if everything wasn't okay? I'm like, no.
Gotcha.
I'm a perfect, like I don't want to admit that something is wrong. I don't want something to be wrong. Yeah, with me.
Got you. Okay, yeah. About saying the scenario, I feel like you're used to everything being wrong. Like that's right.
Yeah, but then it's like, and that's something we talked about is like, I'm in the past 17 years, it's something that really didn't affect me or affected me very, very little. But part of that is because I was like so focused on the next mission or the training up for XYZ. I had something that I was constantly focused on. And then now kind of stepping out of that career field and into kind of the unknown of like, there is no step-by-step of how to run a nonprofit or how to put on an event or how to help people. Like, man, it's awkward when someone's like, hey, these guys just lost a teammate. Will you go speak with them? I'm like, I don't know these people. I don't know what to say. Like, how can I help? I want to say the right thing, but what if what I'm saying isn't the right thing? And there's no book on that. Whereas like in the military, I know exactly if I want to get to this promotion, there's these steps and I need to knock those out. If I want to be better on the team and provide more, be a better asset to the team, then here's the schools that you need to go to. Like, everything's already mapped out and laid out. Like how I get from where I'm at now to where I need to be is pretty clear and defined. And I've been there, I've been doing it for 17 years. So it's all known. Now stepping out of that, ton of anxiety of like, how am I going to provide for my wife and kids? How am I going to, which I've been blessed, but there's no book on that, Yeah. And now the anxiety is I need to perform. And some of it's like something that I didn't know is that certain forms of like trauma, traumatic experiences, they're stored in a place in the brain where it's not tied to logic, it's not tied to reason, and it's not tied to like we can sit here and talk about it all day long. It will not resolve it. It's done through like physically moving your body. Had no clue, didn't know that existed. The lady was like, I think you found that form of therapy in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
She's like, we offer, we try to get people doing painting and doing like yoga. It's a physical activity where you're like, it's not a per se like an active like connection of my brain to that traumatic experience, but it's a different form of breaking that connection. I did not know that existed, and like that, it feels good to just hear that like that's okay.
Well, yeah, and it's the one time where you shut everything off and you're just, I have to get from this point to this point without being choked or whatever.
Yeah,
like, you can't think about anything else.
And that's what I've told a lot of people is like, it's replaced what lifting weights used to be for me. I could go turn my brain off and lift weights. Now, like, man, I got a watch on that's Bluetooth to my phone. Yeah. My headphones are Bluetooth to my phone. I'm getting work calls or texts, and so it's like it stopped being therapeutic, but it's something that I've kind of mentally accepted that this is going to be something that I try to do. Like even with all my injuries, torn hamstrings and torn rotator cuffs, like all these problems, I'm still going to go. I may not be able to do what I used to do, but I want to be in shape. It's more longevity, but it's not that therapy that it used to be.
How long have you been doing jiu-jitsu?
Man, I did it a long time ago, like in high school. But I boxed some and then got into like MMA and then eventually jiu-jitsu. But I've been at SMAA here in town for 5 or 6 years now. So you've been active for a while. Now, this year has been super inconsistent.
Right, because you're traveling so much in new position and all that.
Honestly, man, it's the injuries. Like
I got you.
I can go like right when I came back from deployment, I was so excited to get back into that gym, and I would go, and then I would be like in bed for 2 days, like hurting all over.
Well, people don't understand too. There's a lot that goes into that, like especially if you have prior injuries and like certain specific movements that you haven't done since you got that injury. You don't know you can do until you do it.
Well, like I'm having a lot of like neck. What I thought was a crazy shoulder problem, turns out it's like C-spine problems. So I'm having like shooting nerve pain going down my arm. I was like in some dude's guard and he just grabbed my shoulder and I like tapped. I'm like, I don't know what happened, but I can't. But like stuff like that.
You're making my neck tight talking about
but and that's part of it is like I miss that therapy. I tell people now I feel like a pretender. I talk about jiu-jitsu. I watch jiu-jitsu videos. I love it, but I'm not actively in it like I want to be. Man, I want to go every day and I can't.
I feel that. Like I got the weight thing used to be great for me, and then it got to where, like you said, music, phone, working a job where I'm running multiple businesses, like just so. And then for jiu-jitsu, for me, I've never been so passionate about it, only because I always mix it into fight training. It was never just jiu-jitsu. It was we're wrestling, we're doing jiu-jitsu, we're sparring, we're working on the next fight. And so for me now, it's like I don't think anytime I start doing it, I get the bug back to where I want to fight, and I can't turn that off, and it pisses me off. So like I try to stay in arm's length of it, but I've filled that void for me with doing the CrossFit thing, because I can still do that. If there's a certain position I can't do, I can scale the weight, or I can just not do that, and I can supplement that with a different movement. And I've been doing that. But it's funny because there'll be certain things people are doing. I'm like, dude, and I'm like, and they're like, oh, you don't be a bitch. I'm like, dude, I got some, like, there's some miles and some injuries and fights and previous life bullshit that, like, it's here and there. I can only do certain movements. And one day I may feel amazing. And for 2 weeks, I may have some kind of issue where I can't do something because my knees hurt so fucking bad.
Honestly, I feel like my jiu-jitsu got a little bit better because, like, I'm going in there. Now I know, like, hey, this torn hamstring is not healing correctly, and that's a problem. But I can't bridge off my left leg. Can't do it. So like, it's okay. It's okay to just turtle up and let this dude take my back, or it's okay to not be able to fight tooth and nail to change this position. Like just now start working defense. And like the hardest part for me is like mentally not going as hard as what I normally do. And that's something I love.
So hard for me too.
Coach Wayne Wayne Newtonson is freaking awesome. I love him to death, man. Very few human beings have been able to treat me like I was like a 9-year-old. You know, like absolutely nothing I want to do can I do to Wayne. Yeah. But that was like one of the things he said. He's like, man, I don't have that ability. Like, good on you for trying that. And he's like, but don't come roll with me because I'm gonna go hard. Yeah. I love that. It's super frustrating. I still try to send as many people as I can over to SMAA or the local gyms, but like, I love the therapy of going to jiu-jitsu. I love competing in jiu-jitsu. The mental aspect of like chess with your body and like all of that is freaking incredible to me. Like when you roll with a black belt and see that
you ain't shit.
Yeah.
You ain't
yeah. Shit. And like anything that I think is an opportunity is actually just bait. Yeah. And like he's that many steps ahead of me. It's mentally frustrating.
Yeah, dude. I mean, they're like professors in their art. Like, and it is an art form. It really is. It's martial arts for a reason. It's called that. And man, it's something that's great. And I think I'm glad the awareness. I'm glad the combats. You know, mixed martial arts has brought more attention to that. And then since it being a bigger competitive sport and people, you know, like you are doing it for, you know, any type of therapy. And I mean, I'm all for it. I just, it makes me want to fight again. So I try not to do it as much, you know. I'll occasionally roll with somebody or do something, but every single time I do, I try to jump in there like I'm in a fight camp and I fucked something up for a week or two. It's up to ease back into it.
Well, that's what I tell a lot of people, like first time guys getting into jiu-jitsu. I'm like, dude, the first 6 months is just... it's destroying your ego. Yeah. Like, man, I hurt myself a lot when I got started because when the technique wasn't there, I would just rely on strength.
Yeah, and that's the wrong thing to do.
You know, tore the cartilage in my ribs multiple times. I tore an ab.
I thought I pulled an ab out of socket. Like, I don't even know if you can do that, but one day, bro, like, I'm talking about, like, I thought it was not going to go back in. Like, it crunched up and was just sticking out.
I had I tore an ab. It went from here. It was like sitting on top of my rib cage and spasming. And I was like, oh God. But that, like, once you know enough to know that it's okay if someone gets the position on you, this is practice. This is not a competition. And like going in with that mindset of like, hey, if I can do it, not going 100%, the 100% will always be there. So like, I'd rather be able to go to jiu-jitsu when I'm healthy. I'd rather be able to go 4 or 5 days a week rather than go burn out and hurt myself and then miss 2 weeks and then try to get back into it and then burn out and hurt myself and miss. So like I started to adapt that strategy of like, hey, the biggest thing is consistency. Like showing up every day is going to make me so much better at the end of the year if I'm doing 4 days a week rather than 2 or 3 days a week. So like that's another thing that bothers me mentally is that like I know that I
you know,
can't
capability.
Be in
you know the capability, you also know what it's going to do to you in long term. That's where I'm at with CrossFit now. Like I know we're going to do a couple competitions a year. That's about all I'm good for. With the mental stress of everything going on, limited time to train, and also recovery. And then, you know, I'm still not good with sleep right now. 6 hours is amazing for me. But most nights are 2 or 3, you know. And so combating that with recovery and then pushing your body to its limit, you know, wanting to quit the whole damn time at that peak where your strain's like ridiculous and everything's just tapping out, and then trying to recover with limited sleep and then go back and do it again, and then also be efficient at everything.
Sleep is the most undervalued supplement that nobody focuses on.
I need more. I know I do. But even when I feel like I have the opportunity to get it, my body still wants to get up and move early. You know what I mean? Like if I go too far, if I go like past 6 hours, I feel groggy. But I know that's probably me just getting in a REM sleep. And actually recovering.
So the only time I've ever done a sleep study prior to at Tulane, what they told me, you need to do another one because you didn't sleep enough for us to like gather enough data. And so that's, you know, I've struggled with that for a long time with my sleep, but focusing on that, I'm feeling a whole lot better. As a matter of fact, I just did my blood work again with Core Med, and for the first time, my testosterone was like way higher than what we're actually adjusting my.
With the same treatment.
Yep. Treatment has not changed, but the fact that like my cortisol levels are slowly going down, my estrogen is completely under control, but my sleep is getting better. I'm spending more family time. You know, I'm not drinking hardly ever. Like that kind of stuff is changing. Like now cortisol goes down. Well, now I'm producing more testosterone, and running HCG allows me to like produce some natural testosterone, like keep my natural functions still going rather than just relying totally on testosterone. And it's taken a while to get that protocol down and fixed. And now I'm kind of trying something new. I'm doing a reduced, working with Drew Coleman, one of our PAs that's fantastic. I'm working to like reduce the amount of testosterone that I'm taking, but increase how often that I take it. Almost like microdosing testosterone.
Gotcha.
And so significantly reducing how much testosterone I'm taking and seeing what that effect is on my blood work. And also on my blood pressure so like looking at the full picture, I'm trying to focus more on the longevity of it. But like for the first time, my testosterone was like way up there, and my protocol hasn't changed. So now we're trying some different things to see if I can reduce that amount, get me in the optimal range, and then now that I'm getting better sleep, and it's not great. It's still bad at times, but it's a whole lot better than what it used to be. So and my stress is significantly lower than what it used to be.
That helps a lot, man. I think people people doesn't realize how much that effect has on you long term.
Yep.
And that's what I want. I'm excited. I'm doing my stuff tomorrow.
Yep.
I've already done my test. I'm doing my call tomorrow. I'm excited because that's the biggest thing I want, man. I need consistency.
Yep.
Where I can develop a regimen that is best for me, my family, and my business, and me be like at least it's just consistency. Because dude, there'll be days where I feel amazing, and days where I just feel like a train hit me. Yep. And guess what? I still got to get them to do the same shit.
Yep.
And I know it's because of those things being off, because I see it. I mean, I literally know. Oh well, I had a shot. Well, if I take a shot, the next day I'm gonna start feeling great, but then it's falling off, and it's just like getting the dose right, and then not taking all the other things, and then the peptides thing. I'm excited about that too, because like recovery, man, like the biggest thing, like I said, like I was saying earlier, like pushing yourself and then trying to recover and still be optimized.
Yep. The peptides have been huge for me as well. I tried almost everything you can try to like minimize inflammation, and that's what happens when your cortisol is spiked. You start to just build inflammation everywhere.
That's why you're puffy and you're just like
and so a lot of that is tied to sleep. It's extremely tied to diet. But so starting to try and address that, changing my diet. I've tried a variety of different diets, trying not to do like the fad stuff.
What are you doing right now?
Man, honestly, right now I'm just trying to build out some consistency. I'm probably eating. I'd say that the thing that I felt the best on is doing the like carnivore-ish, where I'm just eating red meat, fruits, no vegetables, but doing fruits, honey, and meat.
Are you still doing any carbohydrates at all?
All my carbs were fruit.
Yeah, see, honey. That's my favorite, and the kind of what I'm back on now. We went vacation, did all that, and you know how that shit messes you up.
Yeah.
Anyways, like, is meat. I do 80% meat, 20% fruit. Like, and I hardly eat any vegetables. If I do have any carbs, it's like more like a bean,
Okay.
Sometimes rice, depending on, like, if I'm pushing my body to a absolute, like, these stupid workouts. We do some crazy shit, dude. You know what I'm talking about. But anyways, it's like, yeah, we do a Y, but we do way other. Like, we'll probably run 5 miles a day. I don't even want to talk about it right now because I don't want to do
terrible.
it. Yeah, it's horrible. I don't. You've done. I'm sure you ran plenty, so you know. But like, I don't feel like that today. But I got to go do it, and I'm like, fuck. But carbs is usually my pre-workout is two handfuls of grapes. 30 minutes before I go do something, because I know I'm pushing my body to that point. But for me, and what I've seen, and I've tried every fucking thing for the past 15 years, especially when you go into fight prep and cutting weight and all that shit. Like, consistently for me, is meat and carnivore based, but then with the fruits added in as the carbohydrate.
That's what I think I've felt the best on, and with that, I saw like an extreme reduction, not in weight, but in like waist size.
Yeah,
so
your
like,
weight stays the same, but you're less like, even your shirts are a little looser. You're like, damn, I feel skinny, but I'm still the same weight. You know?
Yep. So the thing is my diet was so jacked up on this last deployment. So like coming back, I'm like, well, let's just get back into the habit of like meal. I'm not fully there yet. I had, spaghetti with venison meat in it today,
so
but like
baby stepping.
Yeah. My main thing is, hey, my diet is not the number one concern in my life right now. It's more like, hey, figuring out this job and figuring out how I can continue to take the Core Med Foundation and Core Medical Group and kind of spread that gospel and help people. And also focusing on my family and getting my family life in order and being the best dad that I can be to my kids and being the best husband that I can be to my wife. So my physical stuff is kind of taking a little bit of a backseat. Like I'd rather miss a workout and go be with my kids for an extra hour or two. But at the same time, there will come a time where like that's going to be of equal importance again. So I can't be as active as I once was. So I'm just kind of baby stepping. Like you said, I'm just kind of taking it slow, getting back into the rhythm of like, hey, let's cook our meals every day.
Yeah.
Let's do some meal prepping. It doesn't have to be incredibly strict, but just getting back into that, building those good habits again, and keeping a little eye on it while I'm doing it. That's pretty much the bulk of what I'm doing. If I do a crazy workout, I have no problem with eating some spaghetti with venison meat in it or whatever.
Yeah.
But eventually I'll get back into that like carnivore-ish where it's all meat, fruit, honey. And I do a lot of like raw local honey. I'm a huge fan of that.
Dude, honey's the best, bro. Like I'm addicted to grapes because that's the easy thing to grab. I love pineapple, but it's a pain in the ass to cut those, but like grapes for me, I love honey, and my biggest thing is trying to get away from these fucking oils and all this process. That's why I'll drink these. Nobody's paying me to drink these, but it's like there's none of that bullshit sucralose. I mean, they're using stevia and shit like that. I mean, I don't know if that's the best source right now, but if I'm drinking something, trying to do that, like the honey thing, I still get some peanut butter every now and then, but that's full of seed oils. Probably shouldn't eat, it's like everything's horrible. You're trying to find your, the middle ground here.
And that's the thing I tell, like a lot of people be like, man, I spent a ton of time on social media and I'm looking at all of these different, everything's bad for you. It's like, dude, but just start picking one thing, like especially like with your kids stuff, start paying attention to like
that's huge because how much shit did we grow up on?
Crazy.
If you grew up like I did, it's like we just got whatever the hell was there, and we didn't. There was no education. Right?
But also, like the fast food of the past is not the same as the fast food of the present. Yeah. So like, man, that's the biggest thing to me is focusing on like the incremental changes. Like take one thing, pick that one thing, like seed oils, start eliminating it from your diet. That's difficult enough nowadays.
Dude, it's in everything.
And then once that becomes your natural. Like that becomes your habits are we've completely cut that out, and then pick the next thing.
Yeah.
I'm a huge blueberry. I love blueberries. I love strawberries. Dude, I could eat a 5-gallon bucket of blueberries. But like, hey, blueberries are one of my favorites. I find out ways to make that to where I'm getting the organic, like finding the best, most nutrient dense things that I like to eat, and then just make that a habit of buying those things and eating those things and incorporating it into my diet. But it's incremental. Like just like with hormone replacement therapy, the number one thing is get your testosterone, your estrogen in check. And then after that, then if you want to start looking at these peptides or these other options, then yeah, absolutely you should.
Yeah.
But like you got to start somewhere. It's like pick something and start going. And that's kind of where I'm at is like, hey, let's just get back into that habit of eating 80%, 90% as good as possible, and then start slowly manipulating that time back to like the optimal thing for me. I
think that's where I am. If there is room for, if you want to eat shitty one day randomly, it's there, but you have control to just, it happened one time, like if I want to have a big ass cheese smash burger, 7-tap, if I want to get a whole pizza, which I don't do that hardly ever, but if that happens, like I can do it and I feel bad about it. Yeah. I'm right back on point tomorrow,
Yeah. So, man, that's the biggest thing. It's like thinking, how can I enjoy this life to the fullest, but also, be around and be available and be physically capable when my kids are older, at an older age. Like, man, I don't want to tell my kids or my son that I can't go on this elk hunt when he's my age now. Like, well, walking up a mountain, man, that's gonna be tough, I want to be physically capable to go out and enjoy life and go out and enjoy the outdoors with my kids. I still want it to be a question of if I can take my old man way into my 70s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like the only way that I can do that is start focusing on like building those good habits and paying attention to my health right now. What I eat, how I sleep, making sure my hormones are in check, making sure that I'm in the gym as often as possible, and preferably getting some time with some jiu-jitsu as well. Yeah. But building to that, you know what I mean? I can't do it now, but I will soon, especially once I get this hamstring taken care of.
It's always something, bro.
But I've got a ton of arthritis in my shoulders, bulged and herniated discs all up and down my back. Got sciatic nerve pain through my complete right leg, I've got nerve pain shooting down my arm, and it's pretty constant. So it's you learn to live with a level of pain that most people aren't used to, but then figuring out ways to like combat that and start trying to bring those pain levels down, trying to stretch, trying to meditate, whatever it is, trying to get that stuff to diminished and how its impact on my life directly diminished. And that's something that, through lots of different people that we're trying to do with the Core Med Foundation, is working with other nonprofits that are doing that, trying to get them to focus on those communities and bring different options, kind of coming full circle, but like spreading that knowledge, things that I'm going through right now. Like, it's weird because people come to me with issues, like mental issues. I'm like, dude, I'm just finding I'm dealing with it right now too. Yeah. But like, this is like, I understand that I'm not 100% okay with not being okay, but I'm learning that I have to be. And like, if that helps you in some way, here it is, you know what I mean? Like, so we're all human. We're all going through things. Everybody is having a bad day. Everybody's having, mental issues. Every single person to some extent has had some traumatic experience in their life. Every single person has gone through some large transition phase in their life. That isn't exclusive to veterans or law enforcement. Like, my whole goal is to bring people together and like acknowledge that. Like, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have problems. It's okay to go deal with that. And you don't have to be fake and pretend like everything is perfect. Like, none of that has to happen. I mean, I'm sure you've gone through a hard time and pretended like everything was fine.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, I have a past life that's horrible. I was in an outlaw biker gang for like 8 years, bro. Like, I can tell you some shit. I'm not gonna talk about it here, but yeah, dude. Like, it's just like, I've seen some shit.
Man, I would love to get you to meet Mel Chansey.
That'd be awesome.
With Core Medical Group. He'll be there at our February event, Military Appreciation Weekend.
I need to try to be there, man. That'd be amazing.
Dude, we'd love to have you out there.
I'm fucking down.
It'd be freaking great.
My wife's a veterin and former law enforcement, so I think it'd be an amazing experience for her. So we'd love to have you out there.
Yeah, bro. Like I said, it's a great event. I'm really looking forward to this year. I think our next year, or I guess 2026, will probably be ridiculous. We got some big things that we're working on right now for that. But I mean, my whole job right now revolves around this event in February. But we're going to have a ton of vendors out there. We're going to have some great people and some like the chance to interact with some incredible human beings that have been through some of the worst things imaginable and are here alive, doing well. I mean, Jason Redmond, man, if you've ever like taken the time to read about his story, and like, I think he was shot 9 times, I think it's somewhere around like $2 or $3 million of reconstruction surgery on his face. Like, man, when him and his wife came, and I think last year's event, they did like a sit down and they went through like marriage issues and like that they faced while he was doing 20 plus years in the SEAL teams, to include that event. And dude, I wasn't there. I was deployed, but my wife called me and was like, it was freaking incredible. But like, that's the kind of stuff, man. I want to bring good people and have them interact with other good people. Like if you're like your wife, veteran, former law enforcement stuff, dude, she would have a blast out here at the
Yeah, man. I really think it's amazing too. Is like letting those people know that whatever they're going through, they're not alone. Other people have done it, you know, or dealt with it, and then actually physically. Yeah, you may know that, but physically seeing it and talking to them, that's a whole other game changer. Just seeing a YouTube video, you know, or Instagram reel, you know.
And that's kind of what we're looking to do. I don't get super crazy like into like celebrities and whatever, but like, man, when you start meeting and like hanging out with those guys and you see what their schedules are like and like what they're out there hustling, dude. They're working hard. And then they do so much good, like whether it's through the Core Medical Group or their Core Medical Foundation, or it's through their own foundation. A lot of those guys have their own foundations. As a matter of fact, last week we were at this conference in Arizona. It was a gang conference in Arizona. And I was there with Jason Redmond. He was like their keynote speaker. And we were just sitting there talking. He was asking me about my retirement stuff and how that was going. Told him about Tulane, and he's like, dude, I would love to get involved with that nonprofit. I would love to help him out. And I was like, I actually have a Zoom call here in just a little bit to go over with our Core Medical Group's medical provider and theirs. But man, he has his own foundation that he works with, helping veterans going through like traumatic experiences similar to what he went through with all of their injuries and issues. I know Cody Alford has one now where he's taken out law enforcement and military guys on like that want to get out and get into like outdoor recreational sports. He's taking them out. If you've never bow hunted before, they pretty much hook you up completely and take you out on like guided hunts out west. It's freaking sick, dude.
Nice.
But like a lot of those dudes are giving back in 6 different ways while also still working towards
dealing with all that,
their own entrepreneurship and like just running different businesses and being involved with multiple different avenues. It's a good opportunity to go and be around people that you aspire to be like in the end. I mean, we've got Ben Bunn, who's a former Special Forces guy as well, Green Beret, and he works with Warrior Rising, and they pretty much do several large events throughout the year, but it's like Shark Tank for veteran-owned businesses.
Ah, nice.
And so people come out and do those pitches, and it'll be a judges panel that's like the CFO of Goldman Sachs, and just all these guys who are incredibly successful at running businesses, and you come out and give a business pitch, and I can't remember the exact amount, but like first place might be $20,000 investment towards your company. Second place would be like 10, and then third place I think is 5. And it might be different from event to event. But like Sydney Gordon will be on one of the panels running one of the judges for some of these panels. But man, they put on huge events and they're like helping out veteran small-owned businesses. It's just great to be around other good organizations that are giving back to people. We're working with probably 20 other different nonprofits that are helping out veterans in different capacities, whether it's taking them on hunts, giving them therapy, like non-standard therapy stuff, putting on like camaraderie events. We've got one I'll be at later in September. It's Beyond the Barracks out in California, and they're doing like a huge event and doing like a golf tournament and stuff. I mean, it's just cool to be around these people who are constantly giving back to the veteran and law enforcement community, and like actively working to increase like awareness to stop the suicide epidemic that's happening, where we're losing way too many people to veteran suicide. And the thing is law enforcement is right there behind them. Like the divorce rates. Oh yeah. In law enforcement and special operations
they're just staggering.
Probably 90%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you can't, there's no one issue. So like figuring out how to relate to these people, get them, no matter what it is, whether it's finding their purpose, fixing their hormones, giving them a camaraderie event to go to, making them feel comfortable, whatever it is, we're trying to work with an organization who will actively work to help them. And like, that's, I don't care what it is. I don't, we got guys, another guy that I was in special forces with, and he got out, he was out of 7th group, but he's doing like non-typical forms of therapy. And he's like donating ice baths to people, to guys that need it.
Hell yeah.
I know he's paid like a 1-year tuition at a jiu-jitsu gym for a dude before. Like, just cool things like that. There's a bunch of different organizations that are just working to give back to those communities in whatever way that they need. So I absolutely enjoy it. As someone who came from those communities and I've worked with law enforcement a lot, we know the issues. Like, regardless of what they are, we know that they exist. Trying to find ways to make that connection and to sit down and like get that audience of, hey, how can we help? Like, whatever way that we can help, I'm here to help, regardless of what it is. I don't know, man. It's been an ongoing, like, finding this process and like setting up putting systems in place, and like, you know, a lot of it's public speaking, a lot of it's, you know, coming to do podcasts and getting the word out. That is not something that I'm used to doing. Like, you're
doing a great job.
An uncomfortable act for me. I've done the first speaking engagement I did. I got up and I didn't even introduce myself, said nothing about my background. Never talked about how I was in special operations or in the military. But dude, I went to SMAA for probably 3 years before anybody found out what I did outside of there, like that I was a Green Beret. It's not something that I actively talk about. Like, when people ask me what I do, I give them a made up answer because I don't want to have those conversations. It comes across as like, you know, everybody wants to ask questions, and it's like,
I get it.
It can seem like it's bravado or like bragging about what I've done, and that's not the case. Like, especially when you have been in those communities, dude, I know dudes that are genuine legends. Like, there should be books and movies written about them, but they'll never talk about it. Like, I know that I'm nothing in the Green Beret world compared to some of the dudes that I worked with. And I'm not here to like beat my chest and, look at me, I'm a Green Beret, I've done things you never do. Yeah. Like, that's not it. I've met tons of dudes in the civilian world who are just as dedicated and disciplined and focused and driven to have crushed that environment if they so chose. Like, I know guys that are in like entrepreneurship, starting their own businesses, and their hustle is freaking incredible. Like, I don't care what your background is. Like, we're all humans. We've all faced a lot of different experiences, but like, finding ways to relate to each other and come together and like, for the good of humanity, to put our differences aside and start working together to help each other. I think that's the big thing, regardless of what community or background you come from. I think that's like the big key thing to like help guys move forward, because otherwise no one's going to address it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
But yeah, the speaking stuff is not really, I'm working at it.
I mean, I think it's great because, I mean, one, you're already doing things like this help a lot, but two, you know what the hell you're talking about, and that does help a lot when actually you've been through it and you're talking. Like, it's not like you're getting up there and trying to push a sales pitch. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that helps, and especially if you know your audience is dealing with similar issues as you, no matter what their background is. You know? That's the easier part of it to me. Going to like speak to a room full of donors is different. I can see where that would be.
You know, asking for money is a weird thing, and when you're a nonprofit, like that's part of it. That's
a lot of it. Dude, there's so many people. Like, man, I've been in a lot of business to business over the past 10 years. It's run into a lot of shysters, man. So like, you can see, especially if you're a donor, someone that is active and trying to make a difference and stuff like that, you can typically smell bullshit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And know if it's full of, these people are full of shit or not.
And I think that's something that I'm obviously pretty passionate about what I get to do. Even like getting out even before I got out, like running my own businesses while being in the service. That's something that's what kind of gave me like, it's like, dude, if you get out and you take the same passion that you've applied to this job and you do that on the outside, I think I encourage everybody, even if it winds up not working out, even if it burns out or whatever, getting that exposure, like, I mean, dude, starting your own businesses is a whirlwind.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And like, there's a ton of, daunting tasks, and there's but like working through that, a lot of that stuff, dude. And fortunately, I had some great mentors along the way. My wife is an entrepreneur. My wife has Uptown Cheapskate here in town in Bossier. My dad started VCC janitorial supply. Okay. So I think he started that at like 17 years old, still going strong. But like my little sister is an entrepreneur out in Colorado now. But like, I've been surrounded. Sidney Gordon, he was one of my best friends and a huge mentor to me in business and in now I work for him with Core Medical Group and with running the foundation with him. But I've had a lot of good mentors and a lot of people to push me along the way. My wife being one of the biggest, obviously, but those are experiences. That was like my form of college. Like that was my form of education, was like starting businesses and doing really well, and starting businesses and that struggled, and like forcing my way to find, like forcing away a path forward when like it looked like all doors were closed. I learned more doing that than I did from anything else. Like in the business world, and I'm a newbie in business, but that was the most, like, I learned the most amount of information in the shortest time by just going and doing it myself, and finding a way. Now, most of those businesses are closed now just because of, with deployments, it's kind of hard to run a business and be gone, where I don't have my own cell phone or have access to any personal information for extended amounts of time. But it's pretty difficult, almost impossible. But like, even when I was going through like one of the hardest schools of my career, Sephardic, so like kind of hostage rescue, CQB and shooting school, working crazy hours at a place where like every day it feels like you're going to get kicked out of that school and get sent home. Even though it's a lot of fun, it still is very stressful. I still had businesses that were ongoing back home that I was like, all right, we're working noon to midnight, but then midnight when we get off, I've got all this gear to clean and turn in and get stored. And then at 2 a.m., I'm like opening up my laptop and typing up emails and like responding to everything. And like, hey man, I'm sorry for the late email, but like, still trying to manage those businesses gave me like a little bit of an extra drive and like accountability, like forcing accountability into my life, so that I could do those things and be successful. And I think that's part of what's helpful right now running the foundation, is doing our outreach program, is that I have some experience running a for-profit business outside of that. Not going in as just like oh man, if you just give me money, we'll do stuff with it. Yeah. Like, I know what it's like to be on a budget. I know what it's like to I'm not the U.S. military where it's like there's no budget.
Well, blank check.
But I know what that's like, and so that's the way that we do this foundation. That's the way we do the outreach program. Is whatever amount of good we're going to do is what funds come in, and so unfortunately, it's kind of like limited in what we can do because we have to go out and get those funds and do big fundraising events. But honestly, I guess the passion and the pursuit of helping those communities, man, it's led to a lot of great people stepping in and filling those shoes and donating large sums of money and helping that community. So we've been able to do a lot of good. Like I said, we're kind of already over our goal of how many we were going to give away this year for 1 year hormone replacement therapy. And I think our event in February, which is typically our biggest fundraiser of the year, I think that's going to do probably the best that it's ever done this year. We've had an overwhelming amount of feedback and response from that, a lot of involvement from a lot of different people. But man, we had people reaching out, they're like, hey, I'm a Core Medical Group patient for 6 years, man. I just found out that y'all are doing this event this year. and they're donating all kinds of stuff. It's been fantastic, but I don't know. The foundation's been good.
Yeah, dude, it's a lot, dude. It's a lot. Well, look, I'm glad we got to catch up and finish having this conversation because it got like I said, it got cut short last time. I was kind of frustrated, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to be any part of this I can help with. I'd love to, dude, and I'm excited to get the call tomorrow and set up my stuff and hopefully continue telling everybody about everything you guys are doing and staying in contact with you, bro. So, you got any last plugs or anything before we wrap this?
No, man. That's it. Just, the Core Medical Foundation will have our event February 28th through March 2nd in South Carolina. Okay. So I'll get that information to you after this is over. Get you scheduled to come out there.
All right, bro.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right, brother.